Welcome to Thrive to Learn. I'm your host, Deanna Bruce, advocate for thriving students. I work with K 12 schools across the country at the intersection of health and education equity. I'm so excited to welcome Sharon Bostic today. She is the CEO and chief nurse at School Health Partners LLC, a nursing staffing agency, and she holds a doctorate in nursing and a master's in business administration. Dr. Bostic is truly my partner in crime. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Deanna. It is such a pleasure to be here on your vlog today to share more with you about the work that I am doing in school health.
And so you run a nursing staffing agency, and you're also one of my favorite school health consultants because we do so much work together, and you're awesome. And I've been so fortunate to work with you along the way through the years in a few different paths of your career. And you've held just about every job in nursing that there is. So can you give us a brief description as we get started about what you currently do and sort of the journey that brought you here?
Yes, I am currently, as you stated, the owner of School Health Partners. As we know, the pandemic has really demonstrated how important it is that we have health partners in schools so that students can be healthy and ready to learn while they're in schools. We've seen that school leaders, they're focused on academics, and the pandemic really added an additional layer of work. And we know that it's important for school leaders to truly partner with that health care provider in the school, whether it's a nurse, RN, or LPN, or allied health professional. Is so important that school leaders have that partner in health in their schools to support students.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that so well, what you do, and also sort of that intersection, that collaboration that happens at the school level between the school leader and the school nurse. That's a question that oftentimes I'm asked uh, from school leaders, sort of, well, what's the role of the nurse? And oftentimes our idea of school nursing comes from our experiences when we were little. So how has their role changed even over the past few years? And where do you see that maybe they're being overutilized or underutilized?
Yeah. So the role of the school nurse is truly to be that partner in health for school leaders. School nurses are able to provide services anywhere from providing injuries and services that support students, nursing services that support students with injuries and illnesses. They can help do care coordination work, that is ensuring that students have the medications that they need in school, the health forms that they need in school that demonstrate that they're immunized or that they have the appropriate forms on file, such as medication authorizations, or maybe referred to as medication orders or treatment authorization or treatment orders. That's the role of the nurse. They work with families, they can work with healthcare providers, and they really make sure that the student have what they need so that they can get the care that they need while they're in school and keep them in school. That's the role of the nurse. We know that school leaders have so much on their plate. And I will say that I myself, as a school nurse leader, have learned a lot during the pandemic about what school leaders do, and really have a true appreciation for what they do, but also have been able to really look at what they do and really understand how the school nurse can partner so much better in such a more robust way with the school leader to make sure that they are actually working as partners to make sure that that students have what they need so that they can stay in school.
And that sort of takes me to this something that you and I have talked about a lot is that schools are so laser focused on improving students' academics, which is why they exist, and uh, and there's an opportunity for the public health community and nurses to really help in that field because we know that health and education go hand in hand. So how do school nurses view their role as one that can help students academically?
Yes. As a nurse, we understand that students can't learn if they don't feel well. I mean, that's anyone, right? You can't learn, you can't work, you don't play well. I think the what I could really say, one of the things that came out of the pandemic is that it really did bring educators and nurses to the table together. There was an appreciation for the work on both sides. And hey, it really did highlight how important it is, how important that school nurse's role is, and what more the school nurse can do. The school nurse needs to be at the table when they're discussing any health related issues. Nurses can help to make sure that the health plans or the IEPs that are put into place are realistic, that they're truly going to help that student be successful. And then they can know what the plan is and check in on that student to make sure things are happening the way that they should be happening for the student. And now it's time to go a step further and make sure that that nurse is always at the table.
Mhm. I think that that's just right, and I'm glad you brought up IEPs, because I'm, have in my experience working in a large school district, it's, we would have there would be IEP meetings or Section 504 planning meetings with the parents, the family, the student, the key members of the staff, and sometimes the nurse wouldn't be there. And I know you and I feel very strongly that the nurse should be right there at the table in developing goals and accommodations. And so, how when there are health conditions involved, because we've got lots of students now in our schools with chronic health conditions, perhaps um, that more students with chronic health conditions than we had in the past. And so how would you structure, what's your best advice for a school leader when it comes to pulling in the nurse to plan for that care?
Yes, my best advice would be to engage your nurse. Nurses really want to be engaged at that level in the
At what
school.
point? At what point do you engage the nurse?
Engage them at the beginning of the school year. Engage them from the first time you meet them. Set the expectation that you value what they bring, the knowledge and experience that your nurse brings to the table, and let them know that you want to include them in these processes. It should be one of the first conversations that you have with your nurse around the expectations of how he or she will be involved in these meetings. And it could be, IEPs. I know some schools have student support teams, whatever teams that you have in your school where there's an opportunity for the nurse to add value, include them. And then
Mm.
let them know in advance. And if they have an advance notice, will show up to that meeting ready to discuss that student, um, will know information, will bring value to your team so that they can assist you with appropriate accommodations for a student. I
Mhm.
can't say how super important it is. And I think another benefit that that would bring to a school is that would be a mode of integrating that school nurse into your school culture, right? So school nurses
Mhm.
will have this great opportunity to be included into your team. And what a great way to do it. It will benefit your school, the student, and it will benefit the nurse.
Right, and I think that, oftentimes the nurse is the only medical professional in the building, so they are perfectly qualified to interpret doctor's orders and help put the plans in place for a school. So I'm glad that you brought that up. You also brought up this idea of teams, and we know that a lot of schools across the country, their budgets are tight, and many can't even afford a full-time school nurse. And we also know that if there's a nurse there, even though nurses in general are trained to work in teams, they're working in a silo in a school because they're it. They have to work independently. And you're really big, as you're talking about, putting together, a team. What does that mean for you when you're advising a school? Like, how do they put together a school health team? Who's on that team? And sort of how do they work together to coordinate care for students? And how do they coordinate with the school nurse if there is one or other healthcare staff?
Yes. So a team in every school could look very different. So it would be based on the roles and responsibilities that are assigned to the school staff. And then you have the school nurse. Also, a team could be different based on, what is the team assigned to do. So it could be the IEP team, or it could be the student support team that maybe focus more on behavior. So that team could look different. So in the concept of the team doesn't mean it has to be a huge team. To me, it's at least two to three people who can get the work done. Now, what I do know is that the school nurse working in a school can't do it alone, because there's access to certain information. There is support that that nurse will need to get the work done. For example, communicating with families, making sure families are getting a message. That nurse needs to have that 1 to 2 people at least at the school that they're collaborating with or partnering with to get the work done, the whatever the outcome is that the school is looking for. For example, schools who were focused on immunizations were, one of the best practices that we recommended was school health teams. We know that working on teams sometimes are a great way to foster good relationships, and so that's super important.
So we're 3.25 years, 3.25 school years into the pandemic. A lot of people are exhausted and burned out. How can school leaders help their nurses feel supported and valued? And what kind of outcomes should they expect when they do create that kind of support?
Yes. So we talk a lot about how there's burnout even on the educator side, but there's also burnout on the nurse side. So nurses have also suffered burnout and left the workforce, and all of this that we know. One recommendation, one huge, maybe a couple of recommendations that I have is just simple things. Introduce yourself to your nurse. Have that meeting with your nurse at the beginning of the school year, and then periodically. It periodically could meet as often as you need to meet with your school nurse. Include your school nurse in meetings that they need to be present at. We talked about this, briefly, just a short time ago, that nurses want to show up at the IEP meeting, the SST meetings, the meetings where they're discussing health related issues that the nurses will bring value. And also include nurses in other things that's happening in your school. I mean, if you have a board where you're introducing the staff in your school and you have a school nurse, include the school nurse on that board so that the community understand and they know who the school nurse is. It's small things that can be done, some larger, but some are very small, that can be done to make the nurse feel welcome in the school environment and feel like they are a part of the school team. We talked about team, but the larger team, which is I work at this school and I feel included. That's super important.
So, Sharon, as we close out, I want to bring everyone's attention to the tagline for your agency. So, your agency is School Health Partners, and your tagline is Your Partner in Health. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I recognize that school leaders are need to and are focused on academics. And I really want the staff that I am able to provide to them to provide added value and truly be their partner in health. Someone who shows up willing to do what they're able to do to support students, the staff, the school culture, whatever it is that they can do. As a nurse, I expect the staff that I hire to show up wholeheartedly.
Sharon, you're a dream, but you're also a reality, and you are such a great model for any school leader as they supervise their school nurse, as they onboard a new nurse, and they support their nurse as they complete the duties of their own role to help students thrive to learn. So Thank you so much. You're absolutely the best. I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on my vlog. Thanks for coming on today and chatting with us. I'm going to make sure that your contact information is in the show notes for anyone who wants to follow up with you with any questions about school nursing. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, Deanna. It was truly a pleasure to be here today, and I'm so happy that you had me here on your vlog to share more about School Health Partners. Thank you.
What a treat. So glad we had this opportunity to learn from Dr. Bostic today. Let's keep this conversation going. I'd love to jump on a call and chat about how we can work together to create an environment for you where all students can thrive to learn. See you next time.